This Bible question is an excerpt from our television program, What Do the Scriptures Say? We hope that it will enrich your spiritual life, and we hope that you'll come back to www.scripturesay.com to find answers to your Bible questions. Thank you. Many times people run across these kind of things in the Bible that they have no knowledge of. Words, places, names, dates, books. There are references in the Bible to books outside of the Bible, or writings are made mention of in the Bible in several places that are not found in the Scriptures. So this is an obvious question. What do we know about the book of Jasher? Let me show you where the reference is. Let's read Joshua 10 and verse 13 together. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, until the nation avenged themselves of their enemies. Is it not written in the book of Jasher, and the sun stopped in the middle of the day and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day? I have received numerous questions on this particular verse with reference to did that literally happen? Did the sun literally stop? Did the moon literally stop? Did the sun not go down for a whole day? Those kind of questions. And in fact, you'll find those answers to those questions at scripturesay.com. And often people want to know about the book of Jasher. What is that book? Well, if you look at the traditional Jewish rabbi teachings on this particular subject, there's a great deal of division. There are some Jewish teachers who say that the book of Jasher is a reference to the book of Genesis. It's just another term. It's a euphemistic term in reference to the book of Genesis. There are other rabbis who say, no, what this is a reference to the book of Deuteronomy. And others say that it's a reference to the book of Judges. The Targum, which is a collection of writings from Jewish teachers, interprets the book of Jasher as the book of the law of Moses. And another group of Jewish scholars says that the only way to interpret this is to consider this as something that was contained in the law of Moses. But when you come to the first century and you look at Jewish historians, Josephus, for example, Josephus tends to take a view that this is an archive of events that have happened throughout Jewish history. Josephus, who was the first century historian, let me remind you, says that the book of Jasher recorded significant events from the past. And there are lots of people who believe that that's what is referenced here. There are others who say that at the very least it was a record, a journal, an annual in which very memorable events were recorded and kept in the temple. And it's hard to know for certain because this book does not exist in the world today. There's never been a copy found of it. I did run across on the internet a few days ago, I ran across someone who was claiming to have transcribed the book of Jasher into English, and I can find no scholarly example of the book of Jasher anywhere. There's no paper trail to find when it was discovered. This is just an individual on the internet who says, here's the book of Jasher. And as those of you who have explored the internet know, the internet can be a wonderful tool for finding information, and it can also be a place where you receive nothing but garbage and misinformation. And if you've continued to get those emails that all of us have that are full of misinformation, then you know that stuff is posted out there on the internet too. But as I mentioned earlier, in the Bible, there are references made to writings and events that are not necessarily recorded in the Bible. And that's because When Judges was written and addressed to the nation of Israel. And the things that are recorded in the nation of Israel, although they are for our learning and example, 1 Corinthians 10 tells us, those things were addressed primarily, the primary audience was the Jewish nation of Israel. And so at the time it was written, a reference is made to the book of Jasher, which at the time it was received was well known to the recipients. Let me give you a little more modern example, still ancient. Acts 17 verse 28 says, "For in him we live and move and exist, as even some of your own poets have said, for we also are his children." Now, there's an example, and this is really an interesting one, where we have in the book of Acts, the writer of the book of Acts being Luke, quotes from the Apostle Paul, who quotes from a poet who was known to exist in the first century at that time. And Paul quotes something that is not written by inspiration, although it is recorded by inspiration. He simply appeals to a fact well known by the poets of the first century, that we live and move and exist in God. And so someone would like to know, and I've received this question too, who was that poet? Where is that found? Well, that's lost in antiquity. We simply do not know. But the point of this is, from my standpoint, that the Bible, when it's understood properly, must be understood in light of who the original recipients of the work was. The book of Joshua was given to the Jews. It was written during that time frame, and when the book of Jasher is made mention of there, they knew and understood it very well. They knew what that reference was. Same thing is true in Acts 17 and verse 28. When Paul makes reference to the poet, the first century church knew exactly who he was talking about. And even though we don't have information about that today, it simply shows us how relevant the Bible is to the original recipients and how relevant it is to us today. I hope that helps you in your study, and we'll look at another one of your questions when we come back in just a minute. We thank you for your interest in What Do the Scriptures Say? We hope that you will come back to scripturesay.com often for answers to your Bible questions. See you then.